All right, let's dive in. Today we're going on a journey, a trip beyond the comfortable world of select statements and tidy relational tables. We're going to explore the exciting, sometimes messy, but incredibly powerful world of modern data analysis. So if you're great with databases, you've probably felt this, right? You can write the most beautiful, optimized SQL query you've ever seen, but then you're faced with some massive, real-world data set, and it suddenly feels like you've brought a knife to a gunfight. Your trusty tools just aren't cutting it. So what's the deal? Well, the heart of the problem is this gap between our traditional tools and what modern data challenges are actually throwing at us. See, just getting the data out, the query, is only the first step. And honestly, it's often the easiest one. The real heavy lifting starts after you hit enter. And this is where we run into the chaos of real-world data. It's nothing like a clean, perfect database table. We're talking about data sets that are just enormous and messy. They're full of missing values, typos, all kinds of distortions. Maybe the data wasn't even collected properly in the first place. And on top of all that, we've got to deal with this really tricky thing called the curse of dimensionality. So what is that? Well, here's what makes it so tough. When you add more variables or dimensions to your data, the problem doesn't just get a little bit harder. No, it gets exponentially harder. The space your data lives in just blows up, and your data points get incredibly far apart from each other. Think about trying to find a needle in a haystack. Now imagine that haystack is the size of the entire solar system. That's kind of what the curse of dimensionality feels like. Okay, so how in the world do we deal with all of this? We need a new way of thinking, an approach that moves way beyond some simple step-by-step cookbook method. You know, it's really tempting to think that for every data problem, there's just one perfect recipe out there, one clean technique that you can just pull off the shelf and apply. But that's a total fallacy. Real-world problems are almost never that neat and tidy, and just blindly applying a tool, well, that's a recipe for some seriously unintelligent analysis. The real answer is an approach we call intelligent data analysis, or IDEA for short. And here, the goal isn't just to find one single right answer. Not at all. It's an iterative process. It's a journey of exploration. You're using a whole bunch of different techniques to poke and prod the data from all kinds of angles, and you're constantly asking new questions along the way. This whole process, it's not a straight line from A to B. It's a loop. You look at the data, you try a tool, you see what it tells you, and that gives you a new idea for how to look at it differently. So you might change the data, maybe split it up, and then you start the cycle all over again. It's like you're having a dynamic conversation with your data. Now, this kind of back and forth exploratory analysis, it just wasn't really possible a few decades ago. So what changed? What made this all happen? Well, the answer, of course, is the computer. I mean, for centuries, statistics had this reputation for being a super dry, tedious subject. You just picture people scratching away at columns of figures with a quill pen, right? The computer revolution totally flipped the script. All of a sudden, it was possible to use these complex, powerful methods, things like neural networks and Bayesian tools that used to be purely theoretical, to solve actual real-world problems. And this new era of intelligent data analysis, it doesn't just come from one place. It actually stands on the shoulders of two giants. And that brings us to the two fields that really power all of this: statistics and machine learning. This is a fundamentally interdisciplinary approach, because even though both fields have similar goals, they bring their own unique strengths and points of view to the table. So from the world of statistics, we get this real focus on things like rigorous experimental design and proving predictive accuracy. Then, from machine learning, we get these amazing techniques for finding patterns and, maybe more importantly, creating models that are interpretable, meaning we can actually understand why they're making the predictions they are. Intelligent data analysis basically grabs the best from both worlds. So, when you put this all together, what does it really mean? It means that to do modern data analysis, it's not enough to just have the tools. You need a completely new mindset. And this right here is the heart of it. You're not just a technician running a program. You are an explorer. You're on a voyage of discovery. And it's that sense of investigation, of finding something new, that makes modern data analysis one of the most exciting fields you can be in today. There's a great story about a geologist who said he actually envied data analysts. And why? Because while other people do all the hard, tedious work of collecting the data, the analyst gets to be there for that magic moment of truth. They are, in his words, in at the kill, the moment when the hidden, amazing structures in the data are finally revealed. It's all about that flash of insight. So what does this mindset look like day to day? Well, it means you have to embrace that iterative, exploratory loop we talked about. It means you have to use critical thinking, not just blindly apply tools. It's about remembering that this is an interdisciplinary field that pulls from everywhere. And maybe most importantly, you have to get comfortable with the idea that data analysis is never done. It's in a state of permanent and really exciting change. And that brings us right here to the final question. The tools are more powerful than they have ever been, the data is absolutely everywhere, so the only real question left is, what will you set out to discover? Hey, if you enjoyed this look into modern data analysis, do us a favor and hit that like button, share it with someone, and subscribe for more explainers just like this one. Thanks for watching.